good to follow the seed packet. For example, these ones are supposed to be buried 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch deep. Hey everybody, I've got quite a few things going on today. I wanted to share some of it with you. There's some stuff we can discuss, stuff we can learn, and some experiments I want to try, so we're going to see what we can figure out. First experiment is I have my leftover Jiffy seed mix in this one, and that was the last little bit of it. And I recently purchased some Fox Farms light wire. That's what this stuff is. This stuff has added mycorrhizae, it has perlite, as you can see, and it has some worm castings in it as well. All of that stuff is supposed to help the plant, help feed the plant, everything. The Jiffy seed mix has peat moss, perlite, and a little bit of lime for a pH buffer because peat moss is a little bit acidic. This is my staging seed box. I have a bigger seed box over there that you guys saw me build on a different video perhaps. I don't know if you can see that or not. At any rate, here's my staging seed box. These are the ones I need to work on next. And I'll work on these until they're done. I'll probably be adding to it as I go. But eventually I'll be putting them back into my main storage box and pulling out new ones and move on to the next phase. All right, so I have a handful of strawberry gomphrena. Gomphrena, I don't know how to say it, but that's how I call it, gomphrena. Pretty plant. I grew it for the first time last year and I absolutely enjoyed it. A couple things to go over here. I have tweezers in case I need it, a dibbler, marker that is UV resistant so I can write on these plant tags without having any troubles. I have found this skewer, this wooden bamboo skewer, helpful to scoot seeds around if something happens. I rarely use this, but occasionally I need it to scoot some dirt out of the way, and I just need another finger basically. But all of this stuff here is not necessary. You can use a pencil or a finger. I have a hard time using a finger because mine are kind of fat and I get too much out of the way. So what the dibbler does is makes a little spot for you to plant the seeds. And good to follow the seed packet. For example, these ones are supposed to be buried 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch deep. So I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch deep here. I'm going to keep things the same. I'm going to do a 1/4 inch over here on this one. Sorry if you hear that banging. My kids are downstairs playing on the swings, which are hooked up to the floor joist right underneath me. So if you hear that, that's what that is. I'm going to start with one seed per hole, per dibble. And then I'm sure I'll have extra. I'll go back and put some extra seeds. Normally I like to do more than one seed per tray or per cell because I want to up my chances of having a flower for every single one of these cells. So I'm going to put those in. Not quite enough to do two in every one of them. Like that's it. That's not a seed. All right. So then I like to come back through and bury them. The ones that need to be pushed down a little bit because they got stuck up high or not deep enough, push down a little bit. Then I bury them. Get them down to their 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, just fine. Now sometimes this peat mix from Jiffy or any other peat-based mixes, sometimes they get totally dry and it's nearly impossible to get them, the soil or the peat moss, re-moistened. There's one time I did this planting some seeds. I squirted some of the water on, water it in and get the soil moist, the starting mix moist, and it just pooled up on the top of the peat moss. And I let it sit for, I believe it was overnight, and I came back the next morning. The water had almost all the way evaporated, but there was nothing that had soaked through any of the peat moss. It's terrible when it's totally hard. So my secret is I put it in a large bin, kind of like this, my starting mix bin that I keep the seed starting mixes in. And then you can get some boiling water and just pour it in there and then stir it, mix it around really well, and that gets it moistened. So then when you put it in these 6 cells, it absorbs water just fine. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and squirt these down now. You wanna get them moist and you wanna keep them at least damp. You don't want them to be soggy. This So when it's soggy and too wet, then seeds seem to germinate and then drown or not germinate at all, or many different things can happen. So you want to get it wet and then keep it wet, keep an eye on it, not letting it dry out completely, because then if germination has already started and then it dries out completely, then you've got the other opposite end of the problem. They're going to be too dry and they're going to die, and then you won't have success. Sounds a little daunting, especially if you haven't done it before, but it's really not that bad when you get the hang of it and start to get a feel for the different seed mixes. Like this one, I've never worked with this Light Warrior stuff from Fox Farms. So I don't know if it's going to dry out. It's got a lot more perlite in it. This one doesn't have any perlite in it. So it might dry out a little bit. Perlite can help hold moisture, but it also helps drainage. So this stuff was bone dry. I was afraid it was going to be just like the scenario I was talking about earlier, where you have too dry of peat moss and it will not soak in. This is soaking in just fine. So I already like that. It definitely has better drainage. It's already draining through the bottom of this. So definitely different to work with. I'll have to keep an eye on it, and I'll let you know. I'm probably going to have to do a part 2 of this video, because it just doesn't make sense to do a part 1 and have this video sitting here for several weeks while I wait for everything to germinate and then finish the video. I want to be able to publish this video and get you guys started thinking about seed starting. All right, so again, this was strawberry gomphrena, and this one, again, this is a UV resistant marker. I'm not trying to sell you on anything, but there are several brands out there. This is the one I use. It helps, especially if you're in a greenhouse or you keep taking it outside when you're hardening the seedlings off, then it often will get sun bleached and you can't read what it is. In fact, there's a pot that I put out there last year with some seeds in it, and they started to grow, and I couldn't find it when everything was overgrown, and now I can't remember what it was, and I just discovered it yesterday when I was out there doing a video, and it's faded off. I have no idea what's in there anymore. I'll just have to find it again this spring and put it in a better spot where I can keep an eye on it. Added here. And that's it for those two. I'm going to stick those in a tray. I don't have room for everything right here right now. I have a plastic tray I'm going to stick all of these in. But what I hope to get planted today is quite a bit here. I have quite a bit of plants. Mexican sunflower, steel blue eryngium. Yeah, eryngium, purple leaf castor, 5-color Chinese pepper, some, what was that one? Dittany of Crete, Mexican hat plant, which I absolutely love. I planted it last year for the first time, and it was one of my favorite plants. Some melons that are kind of an experiment. Larkspur, I've got quite a bit. And then loofah, I have wanted to grow loofah for the longest time. I just always forget or seem to not buy the seeds for it, but I bought some last year. Tried it in a spot that didn't have enough sun, so I ended up not being successful with it. But this year's the year. I got a dedicated spot for it. It's going to have plenty of sun, lots of heat. And then I love stuff with giant leaves. So I grabbed this 1,000-head kale, and I'm excited to grow that. I want the leaves to grow as big as that guy's got them, but I'm sure I won't get there the first year. Have some purple, atomic purple gomphrena. It's like the strawberry we just did, but different color. That was beautiful last year as well. Some celosia, foxtail lily, some carnations. I've never grown carnations before. Ornamental cabbages, which I love. And this amaranth, this dreadlocks amaranth, I'm really excited about. I want to grow that. Tried growing some in the fall last year that I was going to overwinter in the greenhouse, but I can't remember what happened, and I basically just lost track of it. I have some ranunculus. I'm going to start some tomatoes this early in hopes of having a big 1-gallon one ready for when it's time to plant outside in May. Today is only January 31st. And then a Cherokee purple tomato, Brussels sprouts, Romanesco broccoli, celosia. This, I call it brain celosia. I think it looks so much like a brain, but it's king coral celosia. Yellow pear and honeycomb hybrid. This honeycomb hybrid tomato that I grew last year, it reminded me a lot of the sun-kissed or the sunburst or the many different varieties that have something to do with sun sugar or something like that. But this one, they grew in a little bit more clustered fashion, and it was easy to just pick off a bunch of them and then take them inside and eat them. So anyway, that's a lot of seeds that I have that I want to get done today. I have my work cut out for me. I'm not going to have you sit here and watch me with all of it. I showed you the techniques I use for planting them in trays. I brought these out, and as you saw me earlier using the chemistry cleaning bottle, some people will just use a watering can or a hose end sprayer with a shower attachment and then just quickly run it over the top, but I find that washes away a lot of the seed starting mix, and sometimes even the seeds, especially some of the seeds which are surface sown. There are quite often seeds that are really tiny and just need to be pressed into the top of the soil. So I like using the chemistry bottle just to get things kind of weighted down a little bit so it won't wash away. And then I do what's called bottom watering. And I'll show you how I do that here. I'll take out a couple of the plants. It actually doesn't hurt. I don't mind sending them right there since they're brand new, haven't started sprouting or germinating yet. And then I get a watering can. I just put it in the bottom here. And I put enough water in that it's got about a 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 of an inch in the bottom of the tray. And through capillary action, these seeds and the seed starting mix will just soak up the water, and then all of these will be moistened properly at that point. And then I drain out any excess. This way it doesn't wash away any of those surface sown seeds, and it's really a nice, easy way to water. After you stick the water in the bottom to do the bottom watering, you let it sit there and soak, and then you're going to take the tray. I like to remove just a corner one, and then you go dump the excess water, all the water that's still left in the bottom of the tray. When the seeds are brand new like this, you got to make sure that the seed starting mix doesn't dry out at all. It's got to stay moist. So you can put the humidity domes over this or wrap plastic wrap over them. I am a stay-at-home dad, so I have time to check out all of these throughout the day to make sure they're not drying out. If the imbibition of water into that seed starts and the germination process begins, then if it dries out at that point, then things are dead. It's hard to know on the seeds that are buried if that process has started or not. So it's just vitally important to make sure things don't dry out. Once they are starting to grow, you can start to let them dry out just a little bit, and the more they grow, the more you can let things dry out in between, just to help get the plant to kind of spread its roots out to get the water instead of just staying happy hunky-dory getting all the water they need without growing. And then you won't fertilize any of these, either organic or non-organic, until they start getting the first set of adult leaves. You can see these are the cotyledon leaves, the first set of leaves, and then down in the crotch of that plant, it's hard to see a little bit, you can see a new set of leaves just starting to form. Those will shoot up, and those will be the first set of adult leaves. At that point, you can start fertilizing diluted down to 1/4 strength, and then fertilizing them once a week, because there's not much nutrition that can stay in a cell that's this big. Once you start getting into the bigger pots, after uppotting these, you can fertilize a little less frequently. Move it to every other week, or if they're bigger, just once a month if needed. Once the plants have grown up, and you may have needed to pot up some of these, I have another video on potting plants up. That's just when they get too big. You don't want to get the roots bound inside the container, so you got to pot them up. But then the next step is hardening them off, and that's a very important process. I've lost a handful of plants each year when I was first starting to grow from seed because I didn't harden off. These plants have been sitting in a nice cozy environment inside your house or inside your grow tent or wherever you've been growing the seeds, and they haven't had much wind, they haven't had direct sun. Your plants aren't used to being out in the outdoors. They're used to their nice, comfortable, climate-controlled environment. So the hardening off process takes, I like to take closer to 10 days. But generally what happens there is you take your plants out. There's a couple ways to do it. One is you can take your plants and put them underneath some shade cloth or put them under some dappled shade of a tree. That just means where there's filtered sunlight coming through. And you can let them sit there for a couple days. If the nights aren't too cold, you can just leave them out in that shady area. If the nights do get cold, you want to bring them back inside and protect them. And then once any chance of frost is gone, you can, after they've spent 5 to 7 days underneath the dappled shade, you can start pulling them out in the sun a little bit more, and they're actually going to become toughened up. They will grow new layers on their leaves, and the new leaves that grow are going to be tougher leaves and have the ability to withstand the direct sun and the environment a little bit more. The other way, the way I do it mostly, is I take them from the greenhouse or from the inside my house or the grow tent, wherever. I take them and I place them outside. The first day I use an hour of shade, and then I take them back inside. The second day I'll do an hour of shade and then an hour of sunlight. Once I get past 8 hours, I call it goods. And then they're hardened off, then they're ready to be planted.